Have you ever opened your fridge and paused for a second? Not because something was missing, but because something just didn't feel right? Maybe it was a strange smell coming from the back of the shelf. Maybe it was a food item you stored a few days ago, thinking you were doing the right thing. Trying to keep it fresh. Trying to stay healthy. We've all done it. Tossed leftovers in the fridge. Popped fruits and veggies in the crisper. Even put honey, potatoes, or that little jar of garlic oil right in the corner, thinking, this will keep it safe. But what if I told you that some of those exact foods could actually turn dangerous when chilled? What if I told you that what seems like a smart habit might, slowly and silently, increase your risk of serious illness? Even cancer? Now, I know that might sound dramatic. But stick with me. Because here's the truth, as we get older, our bodies don't bounce back the way they used to. The liver works a little harder. The immune system's not as quick. And the smallest choices, what we eat, how we store our food, can have big consequences over time. You see, cancer doesn't always come from outside threats. Sometimes, it grows from inside our own kitchens. From habits we learned years ago. Habits passed down from well-meaning parents or friends. That just don't serve us anymore. That's why this video is so important, especially if you're over 60. Or if you're caring for someone who is. Because today, we're breaking down 5 everyday foods you should never put in the fridge. Not only can refrigeration ruin their nutritional value, but in some cases, it can trigger chemical changes that make them toxic. And that's not fearmongering, it's science. And number 3? Chances are, you've got it in your kitchen right now. And you've probably been refrigerating it for years. So, if you're serious about protecting your health, if you believe that growing older should come with wisdom, not worry. And if you want to feel confident that the food you're eating is truly supporting your body, then lean in. Because this conversation could change the way you look at your fridge forever. Oh, and before we dive into the list, do me a small favor. If you're someone who cares about what you eat and how it affects your health, drop a quick comment below saying, I care about what I eat. It tells me you're on the same path of mindful living. And if this kind of health wisdom matters to you, especially in your golden years, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Here at Elderly Wisdom Guide, we bring you the insights you deserve, without the fluff, without the fear, just real talk to help you live better, longer. Alright. Ready to open that fridge with new eyes? Let's get into it. Potatoes. Now imagine this. Your aunt, bless her heart, makes a batch of boiled potatoes. She's always been careful about food. She cooks a little extra, thinking it'll save time. She places the leftovers in a sealed container and pops it in the fridge, thinking, this'll keep them fresh for the week. Fast forward a few days. She heats them up, maybe pan-fries them with a bit of butter. But not long after the meal, she starts to feel off. A bit bloated. A little tired. Maybe even a wave of nausea. Now, at first, she brushes it off. Maybe it's just my age, she says. But here's what's really going on beneath the surface, and this is what most people don't know. When raw potatoes are stored in cold temperatures, like inside your fridge, something strange happens. The starches inside them begin to convert into sugars. Sounds harmless, right? But when those chilled potatoes are later cooked, especially fried or roasted, those sugars interact with amino acids in the potato and form a chemical called acrylamide. And acrylamide? That's not something you want in your body. It's a carcinogen, a substance linked to certain types of cancer in studies. Particularly dangerous for older adults whose bodies are less efficient at detoxifying harmful compounds. It's quiet. It's slow. And unless you know what to look for, you wouldn't even know it's happening. But that's not all. You might also notice your potatoes turning green in places, or sprouting those little eyes. That green hue is solanine, a naturally occurring toxin. And while small amounts might not seem dangerous, over time, for someone with a slower metabolism or compromised health, it can add up. Here's the thing. Most people think refrigerating potatoes helps them last longer. I hear it all the time. But I don't want them to spoil. I'm just keeping them cold. But in reality, you're speeding up the very process that breaks them down. You're not preserving them, you're transforming them. So, what should you do? Keep your potatoes in a cool, dry, dark place, like a pantry or kitchen drawer. Avoid the fridge altogether. And be sure to toss any that have sprouted, turned green, or gone soft. Those are early warning signs that toxins may be forming inside. Because when you're in your 60, 70, or 80, or caring for someone who is, you want food that supports your body, not slowly burdens it. And yes, it seems like such a small thing. But when you're walking the road of aging wisely, the small things matter. Now, I wish I could say potatoes were the only everyday food being mistreated in our kitchens. But they're just the tip of the iceberg. Let's move to something sweeter, something we often use to replace sugar. It's golden, it's natural, and it has a reputation for being one of the healthiest things you can eat. But if you've been keeping it cold, you might be doing more harm than good. Honey. We've all got a jar somewhere in the kitchen. Maybe you stir it into your tea in the morning. Drizzle a little on toast. Or use it to soothe a sore throat during cold season. But here's something I hear from a lot of well-meaning folks, especially those who've spent their lives believing that cooler means cleaner. They'll say, "Oh, I keep my honey in the fridge, it lasts longer that way." Let me tell you a little story. There's this sweet lady named Mrs. Agnes who lives just down the street. She's 76, sharp as a tack, and makes the best herbal teas I've ever tasted. One day, while visiting her, I noticed she was struggling to scoop honey from a jar. It was hard. Crystallized. Almost cloudy. I asked her, "Why'd you put it in the fridge?" She smiled and said, "I just thought it would keep it fresh." And that right there? That's one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to this natural treasure. You see, honey doesn't need the fridge. In fact, cold temperatures are one of the worst environments for it. When you refrigerate honey, you're interrupting its natural balance. The cold causes it to crystallize, turning it thick and grainy. And while that might seem like a minor inconvenience, there's more going on beneath the surface. Honey is naturally antibacterial, antifungal, and shelf-stable without refrigeration. It's one of the few foods on Earth that, when pure and properly sealed, can last indefinitely. But here's where things get concerning, especially for seniors. When honey is stored in cold temperatures for long periods, it can develop a compound called hydroxymethylferol, or HMF for short. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but listen closely. HMF forms as honey breaks down. And while it's a natural byproduct of aging honey, cold temperatures accelerate its formation. Several animal studies have shown that high levels of HMF may have carcinogenic effects, meaning it could potentially increase cancer risk over time. And for those of us who are older, or caring for older loved ones, those little risks, they add up. So, while we might think we're protecting our health by keeping honey cold, we're actually doing the opposite. And remember, just because something feels safe doesn't mean it is. That's the hard part about aging wisely. It often means unlearning things we were taught decades ago. Now, you might be wondering, what should I do with my honey then? Simple. Keep it at room temperature, in a tightly sealed jar. Preferably in a dark cupboard, away from sunlight. That's all it needs. No fridge. No fuss. No risk. It stays smooth. It stays golden. It stays good. And if it does crystallize over time, that's okay, it's still safe to eat. Just place the jar in warm water for a few minutes, and it'll return to its silky, pourable self. Now, honey may seem harmless enough. But it's often the healthy foods we trust most that surprise us the most. And if you think honey was eye-opening, wait until we talk about what's hiding in that bag of greens you just picked up from the store. You know the kind, pre-washed, ready to eat, neatly sealed in plastic. The kind that makes salads easy. But ease doesn't always mean safety. Leafy greens. Especially the kind that come pre-washed, bagged, and looking oh so convenient. You've probably bought them before, maybe it's baby spinach, kale, or a spring mix. The label says, triple washed, or ready to eat. And you think, perfect. Healthy eating just got easier. Now picture this, your spouse loves bagged spinach. Loves it. So you pick some up at the store, toss it in the fridge the moment you get home. You add a handful to a sandwich here, a smoothie there, maybe even a dinner salad. It feels like you're doing the right thing. But just a few days later, something's off. They're not feeling well. Stomach cramps. Nausea. Maybe a mild fever. And at first, it doesn't make sense. You think, we've been eating healthier. Where did this come from? Well, it might have started in that sealed plastic bag in your fridge. Here's what you need to know, pre-washed, pre-cut leafy greens are not as safe as they seem. Even though they look clean, shiny, fresh, packaged with a promise, they can harbor dangerous bacteria that are nearly impossible to detect with the naked eye. And the one we worry about most? It's called Listeria monocytogenes. Now here's the real twist, Listeria doesn't mind the cold. In fact, unlike many bacteria, it can grow inside your refrigerator. So, while you think refrigeration is keeping those greens safe, it might actually be giving Listeria the quiet, chilly environment it needs to multiply. For younger people with strong immune systems, this might just lead to a day of discomfort. But for older adults, especially anyone over 60, it can become something much more serious. A Listeria infection can lead to sepsis, neurological complications, or even death in vulnerable individuals. And the scariest part? It can happen from a salad you thought was clean. From a bag you trusted. From a habit that was meant to protect. But here's the thing, we're not powerless. Not at all. The solution? Go back to basics. Whenever possible, buy whole leafy greens, like a full head of lettuce or a fresh bunch of spinach. It may take a minute or two to rinse and chop, but you gain control over your food safety. Wash them yourself, dry them thoroughly, and eat them within 1 to 2 days. Don't let them sit for a week. Don't store them wet in a sealed container. If you absolutely must buy pre-washed greens, eat them as soon as possible, and always check the expiration date. Never assume that pre-washed means risk-free. Because for older adults with delicate immune systems, even the smallest contamination can tip the scale. I know, it's frustrating. You try to make healthy choices, and somehow even lettuce becomes complicated. But aging wisely means staying informed. And once you know better, you do better. That's the kind of power knowledge gives us. Now, if that surprised you, you're not alone. And if you're someone who loves to store the next 2 kitchen staples in the fridge, because you've always done it that way, you'll want to pay especially close attention. Let's take a closer look at something savory and something sweet. Both of which can turn dangerous in the cold. Let's talk about garlic in oil. You know the type. Maybe you've made it yourself, minced garlic mixed with olive oil. Maybe someone gave you a little jar as a gift. Or maybe you spotted a recipe online that said, make your own garlic-infused oil at home, cheap, delicious, and healthy. And you think, why not? Garlic's good for the heart. Oil's good for the body. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you about a friend of mine. He's always been the DIY type. Loves natural living. Cooks everything from scratch. One day, he whips up a batch of garlic oil, chops the garlic nice and fine, covers it in oil, seals the jar, and places it in the fridge. Says it'll keep for the week. A few days later, he adds a spoonful to his pasta. The next morning, he's in the ER. Blurred vision. Slurred speech. Weakness in his muscles that came out of nowhere. The diagnosis? Botulism. A rare but deadly form of food poisoning. And the source? That homemade garlic oil in the fridge. Here's the truth about what happened to him, and what could happen to anyone who doesn't know better. When raw garlic is submerged in oil, and stored in a cold, low-oxygen environment, it creates the perfect breeding ground for a bacterium called Clostridium botulinum. Now, that might sound like a science experiment gone wrong, but listen closely. Clostridium botulinum is no joke. It produces botulinum toxin, one of the most dangerous substances on Earth. A microscopic amount of it can paralyze your muscles. In extreme cases, it can even shut down your ability to breathe. And here's what makes it especially tricky: it doesn't change the taste. It doesn't smell funny. There's no clear sign that anything is wrong, until it's far too late. Now, you might think, well, I put it in the fridge, that should have made it safe, right? Unfortunately, no. Refrigeration might slow down bacterial growth, but it doesn't kill botulinum spores. And for older adults, those with weaker immune systems, reduced gut function, or any chronic illness, the risk isn't just theoretical. It's real. But before you toss out all your garlic and oil, here's what you can do. If you absolutely love garlic oil, and I get it, the flavor is incredible. Stick to commercially prepared versions that are shelf-stable. These are made with safety measures in place and have preservatives that prevent bacterial growth. But if you really want to make it at home, then use it immediately. Don't store it in the fridge for days. Make just enough to use within 24 hours, and if you must save a little, freeze it, not refrigerate. Freezing halts the growth of botulinum bacteria more effectively, buying you a bit of safety time. But even then, only do it if you know exactly what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, no drizzle of flavor is worth the risk of a medical emergency. And again, it's not about fear. It's about wisdom. And making small changes that protect you and the ones you love. Now, we've talked about potatoes. We've talked about honey. We've peeled back the truth behind leafy greens, and garlic oil. But there's one more food we need to cover. And this last one? It's in nearly every kitchen in America. You probably use it in soups, sauces, sandwiches, even by the slice with a sprinkle of salt. And chances are, you've always kept it in the fridge. But when it comes to this food, cold isn't kind. It's harmful. Tomatoes. Let me tell you about my Uncle James. He was the kind of man who loved flavor, bold, fresh, simple. He'd add tomato slices to everything, eggs, toast, even a bowl of rice. But he always kept them in the fridge. I like 'em cold, he'd say. Said it made them feel crisp. But over the years, something changed. He started noticing that his tomatoes weren't tasting like they used to. They turned soft. Mushy. Almost lifeless. And the truth is, that wasn't just age or memory playing tricks. Something real was happening. You see, tomatoes, especially ripe, red ones, are sensitive to cold. When you store them in the fridge, especially below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, the chilly air breaks down their delicate cell walls. That's what gives them that unpleasant mealy texture. But the damage goes deeper than just taste and texture. Refrigeration also reduces lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red color and their reputation for fighting cancer. Yes, Tomatoes have long been celebrated for their cancer-protective properties, especially for supporting prostate health and reducing inflammation. But when you chill them, you're silencing that benefit. You're slowing down the enzymes that produce lycopene, and in some cases, even reversing it. So, what's left? A tomato that's lost its strength. Its richness. Its ability to protect you. And the worst part? Most of us have been doing it for years. We open that fridge drawer, see the label that says, vegetables, and in go the tomatoes, right next to the cucumbers and peppers. Because we assume cold equals preservation. But in this case, it equals degradation. So, what should you do instead? Simple. Keep your tomatoes on the counter. Let them breathe. Let them finish ripening if they need to. Place them out of direct sunlight, and eat them within a few days for the highest nutritional payoff. You'll not only get better flavor, richer, fuller, juicier, but you'll also be giving your body the real benefits tomatoes have to offer. Especially if you're over 60, and you're focused on keeping your heart strong, your cells protected, and your meals healing, not harmful. Because that's what this is really all about. Not fear. Not paranoia. But proactive care. And now that you know these 5 common foods, potatoes, honey, bagged leafy greens, garlic oil, and tomatoes, what do you do with this knowledge? Because knowing is one thing. But acting on it, that's where real health begins. It's unsettling, isn't it? To think that the very foods we've trusted for decades, foods we've grown up with, shared with family, and stored with care, might be quietly undermining our health. Especially in our later years, when our bodies are more sensitive. When recovery takes longer. When the immune system doesn't bounce back like it used to. It's not about blame. It's not even about doing something wrong. It's about the little habits. The quiet, unnoticed routines. Putting a tomato in the fridge. Leaving garlic oil a little too long. Grabbing a bag of pre-washed spinach because it seems convenient. They seem harmless, until they aren't. And for older adults, who may already be managing chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, or immune disorders, these choices carry more weight than we realize. But here's the good news, this isn't about fear. It's about clarity. And with clarity comes control. Because now you know. You see through the myths. You've stepped into the small, powerful group of people who understand how food safety and health preservation go hand in hand. You don't need to fear your refrigerator. You just need to be smarter about what goes in it. It's not about throwing everything out. It's about pausing, checking, and choosing better. Take 5 minutes today. Open that fridge door with fresh eyes. Look for these 5 foods. And ask yourself, is this helping me or hurting me? Then make one small change. Just one. Maybe it's moving your tomatoes to the counter. Maybe it's tossing that old garlic oil you forgot about. Maybe it's buying whole greens next time instead of the bagged mix. Each step you take is a powerful act of care. Not just for your body, but for your independence, your peace of mind, and the people who love you. Remember, it's never too late to adjust course. Every thoughtful action, no matter how small, moves you toward a longer, stronger, more vibrant life. And that is a life worth protecting. Let's quickly recap what we've covered today. Potatoes, don't refrigerate them. Cold converts their starches into harmful compounds. Honey, it doesn't need the fridge. Cold ruins its purity and potential. Bagged leafy greens, a trap for bacteria. Whole and freshly washed is safer. Homemade garlic oil, a serious risk of botulism. Use commercial versions or consume quickly. Tomatoes, keep them at room temp to preserve flavor and cancer-fighting nutrients. These aren't just kitchen tips, they're quiet, life-saving choices. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you been refrigerating any of these foods without realizing the risks? Did your parents or grandparents have food storage habits that made sense back then but might be outdated now? Share your story in the comments. Because your experience could help someone else, maybe even save a life. And if you found this video helpful, if it made you think twice, if it gave you something you didn't know before, please consider subscribing to Elderly Wisdom Guide. We're here every day with practical, science-backed insights designed to help older adults thrive. Not just survive. Thrive. Because aging should never mean fading. It should mean living smarter, living stronger, and making every day count. So hit the like button if this video gave you value. Subscribe to stay connected. And most importantly, share this with someone you love. Because when we care, we share. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Take a deep breath. Open your fridge. And make one better decision today. Until next time, stay wise. Stay well. And never stop choosing life. I'll see you in the next video.